Greetings, friends around the world. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel. United States sanctions, tariffs, and other trade rules or threats are upsetting the world. Could this be leading to some type of a new world order? Well, let's look at some things that have been going on. Here's one. This is from Dmitry Medvedev, the Prime Minister of Russia. He said, new U.S. sanctions would be a declaration of economic war. Well, that sounds pretty serious. Well, North Korea also objected the past several days to U.S. sanctions, as has Iran, the European Union, and Turkey. As a matter of fact, Turkey is very upset, and Turkey is trying to figure out what they're going to do because of all of this. As a matter of fact, it's so bad that someone in Turkey actually went out and said, quote, they are ruling the world on their own. That's a reference to the United States. Somebody must find a solution and say stop to the United States. Say stop to the United States? They say, well, Turkey is just a little country, doesn't have a lot of power. Well, historically, actually, Turkey did have a lot of power. You say, well, we don't need to be concerned about places like that being involved in stopping the United States or changing the new world order to a new world order. Well, actually, if you believe biblical prophecy, you'll see that there's something going on that will not end up well for the United States. If you'd like to follow along, I'm going to go to the book of Psalms, Psalms chapter 83, or the 83rd Psalm. I'm going to start in verse 4, read through verse 8. And this will be from the New King James Version of the Bible. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. They have consulted together with one consent. They have formed a confederacy against you. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagarites, Gebal Ammon, Amalek, Philistia with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria has also joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot. Now, this particular passage is sort of complicated, especially for those of us in the 21st century, because some of these nations or names aren't particularly familiar with this. But it says the tents of Edom, that's a reference to the Turks. Okay? They're involved in some kind of confederacy. The Ishmaelites, these are descendants of Abraham's son Ishmael, who basically became the Arab peoples. And some of the Arab nations and peoples are actually listed in this particular time. We even hear about the Philistia, which in modern terms would be the Palestinians. So there are prophecies that at the time of the end, basically, the Muslim nations in the Middle East, the Arab ones, and Turkey, and some others are going to get together, form a confederacy against Israel. Now we'll get to Israel in just a moment. But then it says Assyria has also joined with them. That means the Europeans have come together. We have information at the cogwriter.com website of identifying each of these particular nations, and I'll put a link to that particular website where we upload this channel to if you want more information on that. As far as the descendants of Israel, the Bible actually shows that the end-time descendants of Israel include the United States, United Kingdom. Maybe people don't realize this, but in Genesis chapter 48, and I'm not going to go there, Jacob, who's also known as Israel, placed his name on the descendants of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, and his name was Israel. This is a prophecy that involves the United States as well as the United Kingdom and its other descendant nations, Anglo nations. Well, what about other countries? Well, here's something from August 10th. It says U.S. tariffs and sanctions policies are keeping European politicians and policymakers to try to figure out what they can do. They're not happy. The latest round of sanctions on Russia has made the Russians very upset as well. The United States might think it's winning in this particular war, but that's simply not the case. What's happening is many in the world are deciding they've got to figure out what to do because of the United States. In late July of 2018, there was a BRICS conference. The BRICS nations are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they've said that the policies from the United States, particularly Donald Trump's policies in terms of sanctions and tariffs, are giving them an opportunity to rise up and to bypass the U.S. dollar. Now, I'd like to read something that Vladimir Putin said during this conference. As far as our U.S. partners and restrictions introduced by them are concerned, including for settlement in dollars, I believe this is a major strategic mistake of our U.S. partners. They, the U.S., thereby undermine confidence in the dollar as a reserve currency. A lot of countries state that it is necessary to expand the possibilities of global financing, the world economy, and to create new reserve currencies. That will make the world economy and world finances more sustainable. So those are quotes from Vladimir Putin, who's the president of Russia. And he's talking about basically a new world order, one no longer dominated by the US dollar or previously the pound from the United Kingdom. This is one of the many unintended consequences of US trade policies. Now, as far as a new world order, many people have heard of Lord Jacob Rothschild. And he's concerned that what's happening now is upsetting the world order the way he'd like to see it. And he talked about problems confronting the Eurozone and what the United States has been doing and everything else. And he's concerned that his idea of the world order, new world order, is about to collapse. But actually what's happening is we're seeing a divide away from the United States and also the United Kingdom because of Brexit, amongst other reasons. And so something's going to fill this power vacuum, and it's going to be a world order, not one that the United States is going to be happy with. Now, the Washington Post had a headline a few weeks back, and its title, it says, "A new world order will likely arise only from calamity." And it says Donald Trump's America First approach to foreign policy is basically upsetting everybody else, and particularly the Europeans. And they're concerned that if some calamity happens, we're going to end up with some kind of a new world order. And a calamity beyond what they expect to happen is going to happen. Now, in Turkey, because of the U.S. sanctions, they're already starting to have some calamity. Turkey, by the way, will turn against the United States, as will Europe. Now, Bloomberg, actually exactly a year ago from today that I'm doing this, had headlines said, "The new world order is leaving the U.S. behind." The second sentence is, "American allies have decided Trump is simply not someone they can do business with." And they're going through the fact that in Latin America, parts of Asia, and Europe basically are saying, wait, we cannot deal with the United States anymore. Here's another headline. You'll love this one. EU globalists and Chinese communists team up to protect New World Order. Well, actually, they mean the next world order, because the Bible talks about a time that's going to come, a time of Jacob's trouble, a time where the world order will no longer be dominated by the United States and or the United Kingdom, those English-speaking nations. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 30. I'd like to read verses 6 and 7. "Ask now and see, whether a man is ever in labor with a child. So why do I see every man with hands on his loins like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. And it's the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." Okay, so the time of Jacob's trouble is a reference to what Jesus called in Matthew 24, verse 21, the Great Tribulation. Now, if you're in Jeremiah, I'm going to read Jeremiah 10, part of verse 25. "Gentiles who do not know you, they have eaten up Jacob, devoured him and consumed him, and made his dwelling place desolate." There's a prophecy about the Gentiles rising up. And remember, I mentioned that Jacob, Israel, wanted his name placed upon the descendants of Joseph. Well, the Gentiles are not Israelites, so we're going from a time where the Israelite nations have dominated to a time the Gentile nations are going to dominate. That is a new world order, and it's more frightening than most people have any idea. I want to read something from Ezekiel, a prophecy from Ezekiel chapter 7. I'm going to start reading in verse 23 to show how good or bad this is going to be. "Make a chain, for the land is filled with crimes of blood, and the city is full of violence. Therefore I will bring the worst of the Gentiles, and they will possess their houses. I will cause the pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled. Destruction comes, they will seek peace, but there is none. So we've got a prophecy that it's going to be the worst of the Gentiles upon a strong place, a place that's got power. This is a reference to the United States being destroyed. Now let me read something from Jesus. This is time from Luke 21. I'm going to start in verse 23 from the New Testament. But woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days, for there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So throughout Scripture, we see warnings of the time the Gentiles coming. It's not going to be a good time. It's going to be a time there will be much destruction. I'm not going to read all these prophecies from the book of Revelation, but Revelation chapter 17 talks about mystery Babylon the Great. It sits on 7 hills. In verse 18 it says the 7 hills that they're sitting on is a great city that rules over the world. A confederation is going to come. A power is going to rise up in Europe. The city of 7 hills, by the way, according to even Roman Catholic scholars, by the way, is Rome. So it's just talking about a European power. And while at this instant, the biggest complainers about U.S. sanctions this past few days, actually, it's been Turkey and Russia. China, Europe, and others are very, very concerned about what's going to happen. As far as what's going to happen to the United States, I'd like to go to Daniel chapter 11, verse 39. This is a prophecy about a power that's going to rise up. In Revelation 13, it talks about a power that looked dead who will rise up and become a warring power. Well, this particular beast power is called the King of the North in Daniel 11. In verse 39, we see something this king is going to do. Thus he shall act against the strongest fortresses with a foreign god. He shall acknowledge and advance its glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. Well, which is the most powerful nation in the earth right now? Which nation has the strongest fortresses? Well, the United States. Presuming this is a 21st century prophecy, a prophecy for the 21st century, and I'm convinced it is, it's a prophecy about the United States being taken over. Now, it won't just be the United States. Let's go back a few other chapters. Daniel chapter 8. I'd like to read starting verse 19, and I'll read over a few things over here. And he said, "Look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation. For the appointed time of the end it shall be." So we see a prophecy, Daniel 8 verse 19. This is an end time prophecy. Also, in Daniel 11 verse 39, also talks about the time of the end. And Daniel 11 does as well. And when's this going to happen? What's going to happen? Now let's cut down to verse 23 of Daniel chapter 8. "In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes." Well, transgressors have reached their fullness. If you hear some of the perverse things that are being promoted in the United States, UK, and other nations, you can see we're getting to the time where transgressors are getting to their fullness. And what's going to happen with this beast power? Verse 24. "His power shall be mighty, but not his own power. He shall destroy fearfully, and shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty, and also the holy people. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule. He shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity." So we've got this prophecy that someone's going to rise up, destroy many in their prosperity. It will be the end of the current world order. So are U.S. trade sanctions and tariffs upsetting the world right now? Yes. Are people saying the United States has to be stopped? Yes. Are nations looking for other ways to get around the United States dollar and trade? Yes. Is this consistent with biblical prophecy? Yes. A new world order is going to rise, one that the Bible warns against, and we're seeing the seeds of it being sown right now. The end is going to come. Biblical prophecies are coming to pass. Believe what this book says. Don't be deceived that the coming new world order is a good thing. As I read in Daniel chapter 8, we're going to use deceit to bring this in. But we should be able to see this now. If we're closer to God, So we will not be amongst those who will be deceived by this coming New World Order, which is going to be destructive for the planet. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel.